Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Unlocking Your Truth podcast. My name is Franchesca Stoyer, and thank you so much for joining me. So this week, I want to get into how yoga can be a catalyst for healing and discovering our truth. Now, in episode 1, which was last week, I got into how yoga was a catalyst in my own healing, and I wanted to get a little more into that because, I can sing the praises of yoga and what it has done for me all day long. Not only has it been instrumental in my healing process, but it has also introduced me to other healing modalities that have been equally important in my healing process. And if you are watching this on YouTube and you have a story of how yoga has benefited you and your physical, mental, or emotional healing, please feel free to write it in the comment section, open up the discussion. That would be awesome. But before I get a little more into my own personal healing process with yoga, I want to get into the data and what the data says. We have all, I would bet, heard the anecdotal evidence supporting the idea of yoga's capacity for healing. We probably heard stories from so many different people saying how it has impacted them and how it has helped them heal. But I want to get into the hard data because there are numerous studies regarding the therapeutic effects of yoga, how yoga impacts brain health, how it's been beneficial for people with PTSD and complex PTSD, and even how it has benefited children, amongst a ton of other articles supporting the healing, the yoga's capacity for healing. But just those 4 subjects in particular, I'm going to go over today kind of briefly and just read little snippets from each of these articles. And I'm going to put the sources of the articles in the description. Most of them are from PubMed, which is an amazing source for articles and studies and data regarding anything, mostly anything, or not pretty much anything in the medical realm. So please feel free to go check them out. But I will put the links of the sources in the description. So where I want to start with this is the article regarding the therapeutic effects of yoga. And I'm basically just going to read snippets directly from what I've clipped out of the article, just because they could explain it way better than I can. So the first one, pardon me 1 second, I just want to take a sip of water. The first thing that it says regarding the therapeutic effects of yoga is the results from the study show that yogic practices enhance muscular strength and body flexibility. That's kind of obvious because that's kind of why everyone goes to yoga, or why they initially go to yoga. It promotes and improves respiratory and cardiovascular function, promotes recovery from and treatment of addiction, reduces stress, anxiety, depression, and chronic pain, improves sleep patterns, and enhances overall well-being and quality of life. Yoga should be considered as a complementary therapy or alternative method for medical therapy in the treatment of stress, anxiety, depression, and other mood disorders, as it has been shown to create a greater sense of well-being, increase feelings of relaxation, improve self-confidence and body image, improve efficiency, better interpersonal relationships, increase attentiveness, lower irritability, and encourage an optimistic outlook on life. Yoga is recognized as a form of mind-body medicine that integrates an individual's physical, mental, and spiritual components to improve aspects of health, particularly stress-related illnesses. Just that first article alone, I personally think, shows the power in yoga's capacity for healing, as well as discovering our truth. Because the way I think about our truth and living our truth is, I feel like at the core is where our truth lies. And I feel like throughout our lives, that truth has been covered with layers of stuff. And think of each of those layers as, our conditioning, our patterns, our habits, our behaviors that result from, things that happened from our conditioning, from our upbringing, from other stuff that's happened in our lives, trauma, stress, any of those other things. And those layers impact us living our truth. And when you think about what it also impacts, it impacts things like confidence. It impacts our relationships. It impacts our outlook on life. It can lead to things like addiction as a result of all of that. Anxiety, depression, chronic pain, all of these things are interweaved into these layers. So if you think about yoga's capacity to heal those things, it's almost as if those layers are being peeled away and you're getting closer and closer to that core of your truth. So I just think that's really cool. I just think it's really cool that there's hard data showing that. But wait, there's more. So the second article that I'm going to read snippets of is yoga's effects on brain health. The studies offer promising early evidence that behavioral interventions like yoga may hold promise to mitigate age-related and neurodegenerative declines, as many of the regions identified are known to demonstrate significant age-related atrophy, which the regions we're going to talk about in a second. Yoga practitioners exhibited greater cortical thickness, gray matter volume, which is associated with better cognitive function, and gray matter density than non-practitioners in a variety of regions of the brain. Among yoga practitioners, a positive relationship between the years of yoga practice and gray matter volume was also observed in a number of areas. The yoga practitioners exhibited greater cortical thickness in an area of the left prefrontal cortex. So the left prefrontal cortex, according to different sources, is associated with working memory, cognitive control, positive goals and emotions, etc. And then in this same study, they sought to determine whether the volume of the hippocampus, a subcortical structure that plays an important role in memory, differed between yoga practitioners with at least 3 years of experience compared to non-practitioners. We found the volume of the left hippocampus to be significantly greater among yoga practitioners compared to age and sex matched controls with similar physical activity and fitness levels. Now that last sentence right there blows my mind, because you can look at these things and you can say, oh, well, I could get those same benefits from just working out or doing weight. And of course, I'm sure that there are benefits to it. But what this particular study is showing is that it is yoga specifically that is creating that significantly greater volume in the left hippocampus than the age and sex match controls with similar physical activity and fitness levels. Like, that is just mind-blowing to me. That's like so awesome to me. But wait, there's more. So the next article talks about trauma-sensitive yoga as a complementary treatment for post-traumatic stress. And again, just direct snippets from these articles. Findings demonstrated that trauma-sensitive yoga's emphasis on mindful movement and interoceptive awareness helps to regulate affective arousal, increases ability to experience emotions safely in the present moment, and promotes a sense of safety and comfort within one's body. Participants felt trauma-sensitive yoga led to benefits in their lives on and off the yoga mat, such as the power to make choices and determine the direction of their lives, develop strong connections to others, accept and appreciate themselves and their life experiences, and cultivate a sense of calm and internal balance. This is huge to me, because essentially trauma, a lot of what happens in trauma, two big things happen when someone's experiencing trauma. One is a lack of control, a loss of control, and a loss of choice. And the second thing is a loss of safety. And what this study is saying is that the participants are experiencing getting those two things back. That in and of itself is evidence of healing on an emotional level and healing trauma. Because just as it says, being able to experience emotions safely in the present moment and promote a sense of safety and comfort within one's body. Perhaps something that they haven't felt in a really long time until that was given back to them on some level, at least, with trauma-sensitive yoga. And then the same thing when they say it led to benefits in their lives, such as the power to make choices and determine the direction of their lives. Again, they're getting their power back. They're getting their control back, their ability to make choices back. And this is what participants in the study are saying. They are claiming that resulted from trauma-sensitive yoga. That's really huge for me. I just think that's so awesome to hear that. And what I also love to hear is just the fact that there's hard data supporting this. But wait, there's more. One last thing. So in this last article, Yoga for Health, What the Science Says. This article talks about children and adults, but I'm going to focus on just the children here because I just thought what they had mentioned here was pretty cool. Yoga can help children learn to self-regulate, focus on the task at hand, and handle problems peacefully. In a 2019 study, 5-year-old kindergarteners doing yoga twice a week in school in place of standard physical education showed less inattention and hyperactivity and completed a task faster than 5-year-olds doing physical education or no exercise. So again, it's yoga specific that is creating those results because they're comparing it to other 5-year-olds that were doing other physical education other than yoga or no exercise at all. So those benefits resulted specifically from yoga. And again, just to have that data to back those results up is, I feel, just a huge step in the direction to support yoga. Just because as a yoga practitioner and also as a yoga teacher, and for those of you who practice and teach yoga, I may not be alone in this, but I know personally that I've experienced skepticism from people in some ways regarding the potential for healing with yoga specifically. And, it's really hard to argue this data to back up the fact that yoga can heal and has the capacity to heal. So that's just really exciting for me to see this data. And this is just 4 of countless articles I saw on PubMed and other various places that supported other areas of healing that yoga has the capacity to assist in. So just really, really awesome. Does this mean yoga is the only way? Certainly not. And that's what I discovered in my own experience. Like I said, yoga has been instrumental in my healing, and it's a modality that I continue to use to this day in my healing process. But it's also a complement to other modalities that I also incorporate in my healing process, root cause being one of those things. And root cause to me is kind of that whole understanding the why that I talk about a lot. The thing with yoga is it's really helpful in regulating the nervous system, amongst other things. It helps with brain health, physical health, all that stuff as well. And the yoga off the mat also introduces the idea to investigate the why, which is basically what led me to these other modalities. Because understanding the why is, while yoga is a huge part of it, for me, understanding the why is also a very huge part of it. And when you look at the yoga off the mat, for example, for me in particular, the yamas and niyamas, and let me just briefly mention what the yamas and niyamas are for those of you who aren't familiar. So the yamas and niyamas are the first two limbs of yoga. And I kind of, at the risk of making it sound religious, because it's not, but it kind of reminds me kind of sort of like the 10 Commandments, but not in a religious context. So yama, which is the first limb, consists of nonviolence, ahimsa, truthfulness, satya, which I actually have tattooed. I have tattooed on my right wrist. Asteya, non-stealing. Brahmacharya, non-excess. And aparigraha, non-possessiveness, which I have tattooed on my other wrist. And then the second limb is the niyama, which the first of the niyama is saucha, which is cleanliness, purity. I kind of shy away from that description because I'm sensitive to the fact that that particular word can be a little sensitive and triggering to use in certain contexts. Second one is santosha, contentment. Tapas, self-discipline, is the third. Svadhyaya, self-study, is the fourth, which that is a huge component for me. And Ishvara Pranidhana, which is surrender. So surrender to a higher being. So the yamas and niyamas in particular, and getting even more specific, truthfulness and self-study, I feel it invited me to explore the whys. Because when I started to delve into the yama and niyama, I began to wonder, well, yeah, this all looks great on paper, and this is all wonderful things that I aspire to practice to the best of my ability. But why have I had such difficulty practicing up to this point? Why would other people maybe have such difficulty practicing this up to this point? And just, it was this nagging question of why that I just had a hard time finding the answer. I felt like I had glimpses of the answer, but it eventually led me to these other modalities like root cause that helped me understand not only what it was that was creating such difficulty with me embodying my true self, but it also allowed me to understand why I was feeling certain things, why I was exhibiting certain behaviors that I knew at the end of the day did not serve my best self. And when I started to combine those modalities with yoga, not only the physical practice, but the yoga off the mat, they were a complement to each other that helped me understand myself better, helped me get to know myself better, and started to help me feel better and more comfortable in my own skin and more confident, and slowly but surely started to peel those layers away. And there's still a lot of layers there that I'm working through, and it's a lifelong journey. But I can see layers peeling away, and I've seen layers peel away. And why I feel it's so important to incorporate both is because yoga offers amazing ways to help bring the nervous system back to a regulated state, to offer the opportunity to explore those whys. And it offers so much opportunity for self-reflection and self-study. But I feel like in that self-study and self-reflection, sometimes we don't necessarily know what to look for. And that's where I found myself when I got to a certain point in my yoga practice and in that self-study and self-reflection. And that's where those other modalities came into play and helped connect the dots and make those connections. And, I was incredibly blessed to explore those things with the support of a therapist and a coach, a trusted coach, and the support of my husband, and working through those things. And, it helped me bring awareness to what were the things that were activating my nervous system and triggering my nervous system that resulted in those behaviors that did not serve my best self, that did not serve my relationships, that did not serve the embodiment of my truth. And again, root cause work was part of that. Also, somatic experiencing was a part of that. It helped me start to tune into what I was feeling in my body, my bodily sensations, when those triggers, when those activations were arising. And that's so important, to be able to tune into what's happening in the body when those triggers and when those activations are arising, because when you can get to that spot, it creates space. It creates space before your prefrontal cortex goes offline, because what happens is when your nervous system becomes activated and it goes into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response, your prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for logical thinking and reasoning, amongst other things, it literally goes offline. So when you're able to start to tune into and become aware of the stuff that's happening in the body as your nervous system starts to activate from these triggers, you can go to the prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of the brain, before it, takes a vacation. And you can create that space and say, what can I do to choose differently here? What am I feeling in my body? Okay, this is what I'm feeling in my body. I am getting angry. What does this anger feel like in my body? It feels like a full energy surge that's coming up, that's making me want to scream at the top of my lungs. I can't tell you how much of a game changer that was in my relationships, particularly with my husband, well, and also with my children. There would be moments, just as with any married couple, that which buttons to push to get the reaction you desire. And my husband knows my buttons. My husband knows what buttons to push to get a certain reaction out of me. And whether it was intentional or not, and I honestly think it wasn't intentional, to be quite honest with you, because I don't think anyone wants to end up having a non-constructive conversation or simply blowout argument with their spouse. But while he's activated as well, we're not, neither one of us are thinking clearly. But there would be times that I would blow up like so quickly that next thing I knew, I was screaming at the top of my lungs, and it went nowhere fast. Once I was able to incorporate self-study, self-reflection, somatic experiencing, starting to tune in what's going on in my body when I start to become activated, it created that space for me to say, I'm getting to a point where I'm going to lose it. And I need some space for myself right now so that doesn't happen. Now, there were other things that came into play as well. I had to feel comfortable in my skin to create that boundary with my husband. And there was a learning curve there as well. But once I was able to tune in, and once I was able to feel comfortable to establish that boundary, it was a game changer in how we communicated. It was a game changer in what our discussions, what resulted from our discussions. Like, I can't even remember the last time our discussions ever escalated to a point where where it kind of went downhill. Like, it's been such a difference. And it's been such a difference also for my husband to offer the space and grace to give me the space I need to establish that boundary and tell him, hey, listen, like I'm feeling in my body, I'm getting really activated at this moment. And when I get really activated, I tend to yell. I don't want to go there. I need X amount of time, whatever that time is, to just sit and cool down. And then let's revisit this conversation so we can talk about this more constructively. It's been a game changer. And as I mentioned, yoga helped bring me to that place, but it was these other things that helped as well. And, of course, when it comes to all of these things, another important aspect is the willingness to put in the work. And it is work. There's a lot of effort involved in it. But I like to think of it in the sense that nothing worthwhile ever comes easy. And it hasn't been easy. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a cakewalk, because it's not. There's a lot of discomfort that I had to move through in all of these facets of my healing process. But I can 100% attest to the fact that it is worth it. And it's also a continual process. And, that's another important aspect, is just understanding there's work, and also understanding that sometimes it's going to involve, or not even sometimes, oftentimes it's going to involve swallowing our pride and giving ourselves permission to make mistakes and taking responsibility and accountability for those mistakes without feeling shameful about it, and feeling safe to express that responsibility and accountability with the person that's in front of you, and hoping that creates that same feeling of safety with that person, and that it results in a better interaction and relationship with each other. And, I really feel there's just so much power in it. And I really am so grateful that there's data that backs up the healing power of yoga in particular, because even though I do use other modalities, yoga is a huge, huge, huge part of it. And I'm just so grateful that there's finally data to back this up. And that hopefully the more that comes out, and the more studies that prove the potential power that yoga has to heal and to discover our truth, the more people will hopefully maybe give it a try and see how it works for them. And because I just know it changed my life. And as a result of it changing my life, it changed the life of my husband, and it changed the life of our relationship. And it changed my relationship with my children. And it also changed my relationship with people closest to me. The people that were closest to me that were willing to ride through those waves. And it also just kind of helped me start to learn discernment and understand that, that there are certain things that you can hold on to, and there are other things you have to let go of. There's just so many nuggets of wisdom in the yoga practice that can also be transferred into the trauma healing realm, that it's just really fascinating and just wonderful. And it's just such a awesome practice to explore. And for those of you who practice and teach yoga, I hope that this episode resonated with you in some way. And I hope that you feel the same thing that I feel, or a similar way that I feel when we have this discussion. And for those of you who don't practice yoga yet, or have been a little trepidatious to try yoga for the first time, I hope that in some way this episode has inspired you to maybe just take one class and see how it goes. For those of you who are in South Florida, I host 2 free classes a week. It won't cost you anything to come and try a class. But there's tons of resources online. If you just want to, hop on YouTube and or just find any other free resource for a free yoga class. Hopefully, for those of you who have not yet tried the practice, I hope that this episode has inspired you. And I just hope it's inspired any of you who have made the choice to listen in for this week. And, as always, I thank you so much for joining me. I'm so grateful to have your time that you've invested in offering a listening ear to my podcast. And I'll see you all next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.